Congressman Adam Kinzinger out of Illinois with me now, pilot in the Air National Guard. And sir, good day to you.
Hey.
I know you've been in meetings throughout the morning here. What can you add to the developments that we've been reporting on, sir?
Well, there's not a ton to add except, look, this is a major terrorist attack. This is a continuation of what we've seen in Europe. This is what happens when you allow ISIS and this terrorist philosophy to grow, to thrive. You don't have major setbacks against them. And frankly, when you have a refugee crisis unabated into Europe, these are the kind of results that are going to happen. So it is important that we not just get what's happening under control, which is the imminent terrorist attacks in Europe and potentially the United States, but we look at the long focus, which is we have to push back this organization in Raqqa, as I heard earlier, in the Middle East, and ultimately we have to fix the situation in Syria so people have a place to go and not to Europe.
We have heard from many experts today talking about human intelligence to infiltrate these neighborhoods, be it in Paris or Brussels or some other location, or perhaps here at home in the U.S. as well. When it comes to human intelligence, what is the level of commitment that you find from those in charge of what is no doubt a critical aspect to all of this?
It's been lacking recently. So, before 9/11, we realized that we had shifted from human intelligence after the Cold War to focus on the use of technology, whether it's just the ability to listen, anything like that. The problem is that stuff is good, but the human intelligence is the only way to get in and to really peer into somebody's soul. So if you're in a community where there may be somebody that's radicalizing, you'd be able to notice that by what you're seeing. You'd be able to get information. We did this very well during the surge in Iraq. That's why the surge was so successful. We're going to have to do stuff like this again here at home and overseas to make sure we're using human intelligence to find out how these networks are developing and imminent attacks and things all along that line. But we have to take this very seriously.
What is the willingness to stay ahead of them in terms? You've got technology that you can use within law enforcement, right, to try and stay ahead of them. But they are adapting quickly, and they're doing it in a lethal way.
Yeah, and that's the problem is we learn usually after a terrorist attack how we need to adapt. They obviously adapt prior to that. Look, our law enforcement does the best they can. They have some fantastic tools available. They need to have more. They need to be able to do what they do within the Constitution. But at the end of the day, we have to have an administration. And I give them credit for stepping up against ISIS a little bit. We're hearing a little more action in the Middle East, but we ultimately have to say this group needs destroyed. Here's the military power required to do it, and we're going to do it tomorrow.
Well, just drill down that point a little more here. Where do you see a change in strategy? Give us the evidence for that.
Well, look, I'm not going to sit here and praise the administration for the strategy against ISIS, but where I will say you've seen some improvement is there's implementation of special operating forces. We're starting to see, we hear about a fire base where the Marines are stationed at in Iraq. There's a bit of a step up, but this is not a complete strategy. This is not a strategy that's required to defeat ISIS. We have to have a strategy not just for Mosul, we have to have a strategy for Raqqa in Syria, their spiritual headquarters. I try to give encouraging things sometimes so that maybe they'll look and smile and say we should do more. But at the end of the day, we're not doing near enough to destroy them. And there's a spectrum on the, no military versus World War II level. Somewhere on there is what's required to defeat this cancer. Let's just use that, end it, call it a day.
If those are your markers, what do you use for numbers? Like, what would be considered an effective force to push back now?
Well, I think whatever's required. I mean, maybe it's 10,000, maybe it's 20, maybe it's more. I don't know. I'm not a general that's sitting there with all the numbers and details. I'm a policymaker and a military pilot. But if a general that knows what's necessary says, here is what's required to destroy ISIS in Iraq, we did this under the surge in their older father called Al-Qaeda. We defeated Al-Qaeda Iraq. We can do this to ISIS again, but we have to have a strategy in Syria. That strategy is not let the Russians have Syria, like I've heard people say. That strategy is destroy ISIS and in Raqqa and anywhere they exist in Syria, and ultimately have a peaceful solution for the Syrian people.
Take the U.S. military out of it now. And what is being done to draft Sunni partners, Shia partners, any Arab partners?
Yeah, I think more needs to be done. Look, it was the Sunnis under the Sunni awakening that helped us to win in a big way in the surge. We need to reach out to our Sunni partners. We need to reach out, frankly, to we're doing it. Continue to train the Iraqi military. We're hoping they're in a position now to be able to move on Mosul, but I heard that a year ago. A year ago, I heard we were going to start to liberate Mosul. It's not going to be America doing the bulk of the work on the ground. It's going to be our partners and, the Kurds and everything else. But we're going to have to provide the steady hand of American leadership, which is something uniquely only we can do, no other military force can do. We have to recognize that and use it. The steady hand of American leadership on the ground.
You're describing a long war.
Yeah, I mean, we've been in a war since 9/11. Actually, prior to that, we just recognized it on 9/11. This is a generational fight. I hate to say it, it's true, and we need to accept it.
Adam Kinzinger, thank you.